There's nothing that is covered that shall not be revealed, folks. I'm going to be going through some interesting stuff in this video. I just did a video over on my other channel covering this topic, and this is actually an extension, sort of a part two to it. This is amazing what I found. We're talking about our history here. We're talking about the American Indians and where did they actually originally come from. And this is something you most likely have never heard before, because this was something I just heard about today for the first time. I had kind of actually, I didn't even have an idea. I just knew a little bit of history that kind of relates to this. Like, I remember hearing about the Grand Canyon and there being Egyptian treasure there. Other than that, though, I hadn't really heard anything like this. Essentially, what we're talking about here is some of the American Indians are from Egypt, from Assyria. They're from they're from ancient Babylon. They're from also other countries as well. We're talking about Mediterranean, and it's going to be pretty surprising to you what I got to show you, folks, because I'm guessing a lot of people have not seen this before. Check this out. For example, this is the name for Cherokee. Okay, you're talking about the Cherokee people. This is literally the name of their god. Okay, I'll show you this actually. Here it is. This is actually in Phoenician or Paleo-Hebrew. This is an ancient artifact, I guess you would say. And as you can see here, it has the YHVH. And this is literally something you can find in a lot of these ancient stone carvings and things like this. This is actually, I think, from Michigan. If you read the Cherokee, I actually covered this over on my other channel, creation, story, it literally reads like the first book, folks. In the beginning, Yahweh created the sky world and our mother earth. The waters around the earth were dark and deep, but the spirit of Yahweh moved upon the face of the waters. Does this sound a little familiar? Yeah, that's the Cherokees, okay? And like I said, if you go through this, and here's another example when I'm talking about how they actually say the name. Look at this. It's literally pronounced almost the exact same. It's because, and that's what we're going to cover in this video, it's because certain tribes, certain American Indian tribes, around 500 BC, came over to the Americas to avoid Babylonian captivity. Okay? So we're talking about what we call the mound builders, which almost look kind of like pyramids when you look at them. There's actually three different sort of eras to history for the American Indians. You have the mound builders, you have the Hopewell, and Adena. Now, the mound builders are actually before 500 BC. And the mounds, of course, I've talked about that on video before. Generally, they're giant, 8 foot, 9 foot, 10 foot, 11 foot tall people. We had a lot of articles written in newspapers, famous newspapers from today, New York Times, whatever, where back 100 years ago, or actually more than 100 years ago, usually like 100, 200 years ago, more like 1890, 1880, they'd have these articles talking about, oh, they found all these giant skeletons in Ohio or Indiana or Michigan, and they're on these mounds. And I've done videos talking about this in the past. That happened to be the time frame of like 2000 BC to 500 BC. Those were the mound builders. What we're going to talk about more here is the Hopewell, which are these people that came from ancient Egypt, Assyria, Babylon, Hebrews, all manner of people. And they came over, and especially, let me show you this here. I wanted to show you a couple things. I thought I had it written down, but these guys came over to escape the Babylonian captivity. Okay, this is what we're talking about. So that was around 500 BC, and they came over to. Well, let me show you the areas that they were in. Again, this is the time frame, 500 BC to 400 AD. If we go through this, We're talking here, Hopewell sites are Atlantic coast, South U.S., Tennessee, and Iowa. Now, also there's some rather interesting stuff going on around the Great Lakes as well. As you can see here, they came in through the Great Lakes, or down below with near Florida. This is those that were trying to get, as you would say, away from Babylonian captivity, which is around 580 BC, I think it was. And this is the type of buildings they would have. As you can see, it kind of looks like a sort of pyramid structure, which is rather intriguing. And how they set up their, this is the Chicoia State Historical Site here. And how it looked. It looks kind of like, again, a pyramid structure. This is the North Carolina Mounds, as you can see here. Of course, you've heard of star, as you would say, forts and everything as well. Again, this is what I was showing you earlier. For the name of, as you would say, God, you have in their Native American languages, Yod He Va He. You see that? Yod He Va. Yohe-Wa, Yahud, Yahweh, Yahvoyaha. I don't even know how to say them, so I'm just trying to guess there a little bit there. You can see it's very similar though, right? Now, I showed a lot of things in my other video that are pretty surprising. I'll show you a little bit here because it's just amazing. This actually here's very amazing. This is from various American Indian languages. They have words, how they're spoken, how they're written, and compare them to Chaldaic. As you can see here, very similar. Okay? Shilu, Chemim, instead of Shemim, Abba, Ish, as you can see here, literally almost the exact same words. Now, these are various American Indian languages. What it was essentially is, again, it's kind of interesting. It reminds me of when we came over here. You know, you had the Spaniards, you had the English, and you had the French come over to this area, this country, and it was around, 1600s, 1400s, depending on who you're talking about, right? Now, of course, Michigan wasn't even established till I think it was 1830. A lot of people think it was just, 17, whatever, but it was actually a little bit later on. So you have all these people from different areas coming over, right? The same thing happened back then. You had Assyrians, you had Egyptians, you had all these different people from different places coming over at the same time, and that's who make up the American Indians. You have different tribes are actually from different peoples. Like I mentioned about the Grand Canyon, that there's a lot of treasure, Egyptian treasure in the Grand Canyon. Of course, for 100 years, they didn't want people to know about this. There was an employee that worked for, I think it was the Smithsonian, that came out and put out an article talking about this, that there's this area in the Grand Canyon where there's this huge amount of Egyptian hieroglyphics and gold and just random items, right? Artifacts. And then they said, no, this guy doesn't work for us. We don't even know who he is. And they said that for 100 years. They literally for 100 years said they didn't know who this guy was. He didn't work for us. He's not part of our company like that. Then I think it was 2015, somewhere in there. It was recent, not that long ago. They put out a little article on their website. Oh yeah, that guy worked for us. Yeah, we're just telling the opposite for 100 years. No big deal. Who cares? It's not a big deal. Yeah. Of course, they also, if you go look at these, I've talked about this in the past as well, these articles from 100, 200 years ago talking about these mounds like we were just looking at there. They had more ancient mounds. Like I mentioned, there was people back in 2000 BC that were here, the mound builders. And, these were everywhere. Ohio, Indiana, Michigan, everywhere. Actually, there's a lot of other states too, Tennessee, all of them. They had these mounds and they would have giants' bones. I mean, they'd be like, 10 foot tall. And the Smithsonian would come along and take them all. They'd be gone. That's really nice of them, right? And then, of course, you'd never hear about it again, right? Of course, this completely fits in with evolution, right? So supposedly they're supposed to be getting taller, not the other way around. And so it doesn't fit the what they want you, we're talking what they put in the history books here, folks. And a lot of this doesn't fit, and I'm actually starting to think that this is pretty prevalent everywhere, because I've done a few videos on other places as well, like India. I've covered China, their ancient history. If you go look into it, they have very similar things to this, where you see connections that, you never heard about. Literally this. Or also, in the case of India, you had Thomas, as you would say, the doubter, who went there, and it was all of southern India. And there's like these ancient temples where it looks just like this Cherokee thing here, where they'll have like literally something written like this in some ancient Indian temple in India. And it will say literally almost like what it would say in this book here, okay? Almost word for word. And they have no clue. The people that run the temple don't even really know. They're like, oh, okay. Like they forgot their history or something. And it's interesting. Like I said, you can see it with this as well. Some of these ancient American Indians had they had very nice architecture as well, even buildings and such, as you can see here. This was, 500 BC, folks. Okay? And, you want to go check out my other video, because I cover a lot of other things as well. Matter of fact, they even have this one American Indian tribe. I'm trying to remember which one it was. They had this copper tube that had this parchment in it, and the parchment had one of the 5 books of, as you would say, Moses. Part of it. We're talking an American Indian tribe, just something that was handed down to them from generation to generation. Oh, here, we got this copper tube here with this book in it in Paleo Hebrew, which was the original language, or Phoenician. And like, for example, with the Cherokees, they were clearly from this area, folks. Okay, the Cherokees. Here, if you look at the Cherokee green corn ceremony, it's literally the exact same as the fall feast. Okay? So, this is, we're talking this country, of course. I think you already know what I'm talking about. So that's where the Cherokees actually came from. During the Babylonian captivity, they came over here to avoid it. And that's who the Cherokees are. That's actually one of them. And literally, if you follow this, they have the exact same ceremony. All the exact same, except for the offerings are made unto the thunder beings, in the case of the Cherokees. Other than that, everything is the exact same. So, how is it their ceremony is the exact same? Why do they have literally Phoenician written on their stuff? Okay? Why are their words all the same? This is what I'm trying to get at. So it's just, I think it's pretty amazing. I just discovered this today, and I thought this was just so surprising. I thought I'd have to talk about it because it just seemed too good to not talk about. All right? Actually got a lot of stuff to go over here. Let's see here. What else do we got? I was trying to... Okay, so these are the Hopewell sites. The Atlantic Coast, Tennessee, and Iowa. And like I said, they're different for each tribe. Okay? And I was trying to get over to something over here. What was I going to show over here? Let's see. Oh, yeah, this is really interesting. I wanted to show you this. Okay, so this is... I'm trying to remember. This is the... Is this a Mi'kmaq? How do you say it? I think it's... I'm trying to remember the tribe's name. Oh, yeah, here we go. Mi'kmaq. This is who it is. Mi'kmaq tribe. These guys, their letters or hieroglyphs are literally the exact same as ancient Egypt. So this is a Smith-Anthon letter hieroglyphs from ancient Egypt. This is the Mi'kmaq Indian hieroglyphs. And if you go down the list, they look almost all the exact same. You see that? skip back too far. Here we go. There's more. You can see their letter system is the exact same as ancient Egypt. You never hear about this in school, do you? No, you don't. Here you have another Indian. This isn't even in the same area. This is a completely different area. Where were these guys? These guys are over in Hill Cumra. Okay. So they're like near the Canadian border, okay? Talking like New York or something there. And these guys are over in the Grand Canyon area, okay? These American Indians have some sort of heritage with this. These are the actual treasures that were found in the Grand Canyon. Like I said, it was like 2015 or something. And again, look, this is a History Channel, folks. This is from the History Channel. Now, before 2015, like I said, the Smithsonian was saying, oh, there's nothing there. Nothing. That guide never was employed by us, by the way. There's nothing over in the Grand Canyon. What are you talking about? Like saying for 100 years it wasn't there. I had a video, like I think it was in 2012, talking about this. Saying there was something there. Right? Here's some of the actual gold pieces that are from Egypt that were in the Grand Canyon. And here's one of the American Indians in that area. I can't remember which tribe this guy's from. There's so many different tribes, but what else was I going to say? Oh yeah, they had the red-haired, as you would say, giants also near the Grand Canyon, and there was a long thing between the Indians and them there, and I think it ended there. I think it was there at the Grand Canyon that it ended, or near the Grand Canyon. We're talking about one of these. They had a lot of these apparently between the Indians and the giants. And of course, this is very ancient history for even them. But they have lots of stories, even books talking about this, okay, between the Indians and the giants. So, and I know one of them ended near the Grand Canyon. So it's just amazing, all of this. You never hear about any of this stuff. Like I said, I pulled up some history books that were written by the conquistadors back in what was it like the 1600s or something like that. And I was going through some of the history books that they were writing back then, and it talks about giants all throughout it. Talks about them having, a skull this big, literally, and they even had like this cave with like 3 kings, sitting on their thrones. And I mean, there was a lot of interesting stuff. I did a video talking about that, and that was with the Incas and Mayans and such. They had all their stories about them as well, but it's rather curious, this whole thing. The more I look into this stuff, and I plan on doing a lot of videos like this, because I figure if I found something about India, if I found something about China, if I found something about the American Indians like this, I'm guessing this is everywhere. I'm guessing this is literally everywhere. And I should just do some pretty detailed videos covering some of this. I mean, I'm just barely scratching the surface. I'm just like pointing out little, like the tip of the iceberg here of what is actually here. Look at this. This is one of their carvings right here. Shows one of their ships, and it shows all these people. What do you think this is, folks? Doesn't that look a little bit like Noah? And this is American Indian. Look at this. This looks like ancient hieroglyphs from Egypt. You see this? Look at this. Does this look familiar? Remember a certain basket on the water in Egypt? I mean, this thing is literally written in Egyptian, isn't it? Look at that. That's in America. That was found near Michigan. This stuff is found around the Great Lakes. I mentioned how... Okay, we're going to get back to this in a sec. I have so many things open. Where was it at? I mentioned how they came in. Look, they came in through the Great Lakes. See that? This is where they found a lot of this stuff. So when they first came from, avoiding Babylon, trying to, get away from that. They came in from these two different directions, from near Florida and then through the Great Lakes. Okay? And that's where they found a lot of this stuff in Michigan. Like I said, I grew up there. But a lot of these are from there. Okay? Look at that, man. That's just amazing. Look at this. Looks like the Ark. We're talking of the Covenant here, folks. Very similar looking. Even a similar type of design for... Yeah. Of course, and I've done videos on this as well. Dragons. And there's a lot of this. If you go look at some of the pottery and carvings from the Incas and Mayans, there's tons of this. They'll even show the design of the scales on some of the dinosaurs that they wouldn't even be able to know about if they're supposedly from millions of years ago. They actually had, I saw one Mayan one, and it had the scales exactly right. Just the way we know they are, because they got preserved in some honeycomb, or I can't remember what you call it, that amber stuff, whatever. Got preserved in that, and they actually had some samples of how the scales actually looked, and it was the exact same as their drawings. And they would show them like riding them, or like, something like this. You know what I mean? And there's like stories like this about dragons everywhere. I'm sure if you see my other videos, you know all about that, but there's tons of those stories as well. So, I mean, it's just pretty amazing, some of the stuff here, folks, that I've found. What else do we got here? There's actually a lot more. They got like tons of these pictures of things like this. Look at this. What in the world? It's like a castle. So this is amazing too. Wow. I don't know. I guess this is something that maybe was made later. I'm not sure. Some of these. What is this one? Oh, this is looks like Egyptian as well. This is also YHVH. Okay, what was it I was going to show you? I was going to show you something else back here. I have so many windows open right now. Yeah, here we go. I think I mentioned about this. They had some scholars actually look into this copper tube that had this parchment and examined it and figured out what it was. And like I said, it was part of the 5 books, okay, as you would say, of Moses. They found these as well in Farmington, Connecticut, on Pinnacle Mountain. As you can see here, also written in Phoenician. You can see Adam, Abraham. So there's a lot of this stuff, folks. It's quite amazing. But at any rate, so there's a lot of stuff there, and you could check out this channel here. Okay, he has a number of videos like this. I haven't even went through them all. I've just went through a little bit of a couple of them, and then there's also another channel I was looking at here as well. Actually, there's a couple channels, but that was one of the main ones I was looking at right there. I was showing you stuff from his video there, because this video is like an hour and 30 minutes long. I'm just showing you some of the highlights of what it says. I'm not going to be making an hour and 30 minute long video here, folks, but